All right, so I'm gonna be working on the 440 Mopar. The next thing that we're gonna do is measure for the rod bearing clearances and install the piston rings. So let me show you the procedure that we do. All right, so I got all of the bearings measured up. So we know what those are. They're all written down in the Excel sheet. So next thing I'm going to do is put the rings on the pistons. So I already went ahead and put all of the rings in the bores and gapped them. Those are also written down in the computer per cylinder. So one reason, or this is a good example of why you should be thorough and check everything. So these are brand new ring sets, obviously. And when I was checking the number 6 cylinder, you can see that this ring was not perfectly symmetrical. Would that be the right word, symmetrical? I don't know. Anyways, the ring was defective. So I can show you that real quick. Hold up. All right, so when the ring was in the bore, let me see if you can see that there's a gap. So one's narrower. There you go. One's narrower than, or skinnier, I guess you could say. Shorter? All right, so you can see one side is shorter, and that's not good for ring seal. So that's why you got to check everything. Also, we had to get these bearings sent out to get coated because they were too large, and that was sent to us from the machine shop. So always got to check, double check everything. All right, so I already went ahead and measured the journal for the first, for cylinders 1 and 2, 3 and 4. I did measure for 5 and 6. I just did not measure the bearing diameter yet. So let me show you how to measure the journal though. So let me see. All right, so the first thing you want to do is clean the journal off. Make sure there's no oils on there, because that can affect your measurement. So let me see if I can do this with one hand. So first you want to get it close, and then you spin the top knob so you don't tighten it too tight, because that can also affect your measurement. So let me go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll show you guys what the number is. All right, so I got it measured. So you start with the least number. So you got 2.3, and you see that middle mark right there. The second mark after the 3, that's a 50, and you add 14 to that, which is 64. And then, kind of shaky. And then you see that line is lined up with the 3. So that means we got 2.3643. So on this one we got 642, and that could be based off the temperature of the material, because it does grow. So we actually measured them I think a couple weeks ago, so that's why it's all right. So the reason why we got a little variant in size is because this measurement on the computer was taken maybe a couple weeks ago, and the temperature could have been a little bit different. So I went ahead and checked on the dial bore gauge. It's not a dial bore gauge. Micrometer. And I checked it a couple times, and I got the same exact size every single time. So it's 1/10 off. Like I said, could be due to the temperature. So it's a good idea to check everything, basically reset as you measure, because that could make your measurements that much more accurate. So let's see. So now that I got the measurement on the micrometer, I'm going to take the dowel bore gauge, zero it out. Basically what you do is you put it in the middle, and then basically you get that needle on the zero. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll show you what the next step is. All right, so I got it set on 0. So the next thing you do is you check the next rod, and you set it in just like that. Make sure it's straight. And you want to find out what the smallest area is. Looks like it's 2.3. Oh, 2.2. Mosquitoes, dude. Yeah, 2.2. Okay. So, number 5 cylinder rod bearing journal clearance is 2.2. So I'm going to, what's right here? Type that in the Excel sheet, 0.0022. And then we're gonna measure number 6. All right, so first thing you're gonna do is put this oil ring on, the bottom one first, and then you're gonna do the expander. If I can get it. Then you're gonna do the expander, and then you're gonna do the top oil ring. Then you'll do the second ring right there, and then you're gonna do the top ring. Whoops, shaky right now. Then you're gonna do the top ring. But these have orientation, so that goes on the top. You don't want to put it upside down, so that goes facing up. And for the second ring, there's a dot that goes facing up as well. So you can see that right there. And then for the oil rings, it doesn't. The only thing that matters is the way you put them in. So just like that. All right, so let me install the rings real quick and show you what it looks like. All right, so you actually want to put the middle ring for the oil rings in first, because that's what pushes these two outer rings outward. If you put the bottom ring in first, it won't allow this ring, the middle ring, to actually push that outward. So other than that, so I got everything on. Next thing you want to do is just make sure that they all spin freely inside the ring land. They don't get caught. And after that, it's done. So I'm gonna do that to the rest of them, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I just measured the number 6 rod, and I got 0.0023. And then after that, we're gonna move to the next journal, and we're gonna repeat the process for the last one. Also, I didn't say this, but whenever you're measuring the journals, the rod or mains, whatever, you want to add moly lube to these bolts, even on the main caps, and you want to torque them to spec with the bearings in them, and then you can use the dial bore gauge to measure that. But if you don't torque them down to spec, then your measurements are going to change. So yeah, just a little tip. All right, so now I got to loosen the bolts for the rod caps, and we got the ring compressor on already. So I'll show you guys how to install the piston now. All right, so I oiled down all the cylinders, applied oil to all the rings, made sure that the rings are clocked, basically so the gaps aren't lined up with each other, on the oil ring, on the second ring, and the top ring. I also made sure and I double checked that the rings on top and the second ring are facing the right way, facing up. Also put some assembly lube on the bearing. I put the first journal on the bottom of the stroke. So the next thing to do is to put it in, oiled up the skirts and everything. So I'm going to set the piston in and go from there. All right, first piston's in. Now I gotta rotate the motor and basically align it on the main, or on the journal, and then snug it down. All right, so just like that, first one is in. I reapplied some moly lube to the bolts, so when we go to torque them down, they should be good. So basically, just repeat the process 7 more times, and then bottom end's basically done. Then you got to go back and torque the rods, but yeah, that's basically it. All right, so we got the pistons and the rods in the motor. Next thing to do is torque them down. We'll start at 25 foot or 20 foot-pounds and end on 75 foot-pounds.
All right, Andrew. Looks like you got a couple things going on here. You got differential that you're putting gears on and bearings, you and Bartel. And then let's check out the motor. What you got done there? Woo! Look at that. This actually has a pretty decent sized bore.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost a big block Chevy. Actually, no, it is. It's more than a big block Chevy.
440.
No, I know, but as far as the big block Chevy bore size,
standard over?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's what, 4.3 something?
4.355.
The big block Chevy standard board is 4.250, so it's actually a decent sized slug. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's see the underside. Want to spin it real quick?
Actually, this thing rotates over
pretty easily.
Pretty easily.
You know why? Because it's a skirted block, so
yeah,
there's a lot of weight behind it or beneath it.
It's more square, more even. Yeah, I did check that plate too.
Got all the lube.
I put a lot in there.
Okay. What is the play? Is it like 20?
I'll try 22. It's 22.
Okay. Are they all 22?
22, that's probably a little bigger. 22, yeah.
Do you know what that clearance is mainly, what benefits from that clearance? I mean, it's a byproduct of its design, but
well, I mean, if it was, I would assume, if it was off a little bit.
so if the gap is too big, you have too much flow past the bearing, right, causing
Okay.
a lot of oil pressure loss. But it actually lubricates the camshaft.
Yeah.
Because it's always spinning.
Yeah.
So and the underside of the piston, obviously, the skirt and stuff. So
I know
Okay.
they yeah.
that looks good. Cool. So the clearances that we initially had were 3.1, 3.0, 3, 3.1, 2.8, 3.1, 2.5. So basically, they were about a half thou too wide for the application. So typically, you want a 1,000th clearance for every inch of journal diameter. So now the coating on the bearings from Calico, I mean, basically it added a half thou to it, and that's basically where we needed to be. And the bearing orientation it's not the same orientation it was when we took the initial measurements. So on this one here, number 7, it's 2.525. It didn't change much, which means that bearing was
One of the bigger ones.
one of the bigger ones, yeah. So on that other journal, so we swapped over. So they're actually really good because the one that was 2.1 is now 2.6. So it's definitely favorable. So that's a good.
No, vice versa.
Sorry.
No, it's 2.6 is now 2.1.
Yeah, no, it's 2.1. Sorry, which is still within spec. So like I said, you're talking half thou. It's kind of wide, but
Will that coating come off as well?
it's not a abradable coating. So I mean, if you think about it, the bearing material never touches the crankshaft.
Right. Oh, that's true.
So it basically rides on the hydrodynamic wedge of oil film. So, so on this motor, we're probably going to run like 10 to be 40 motor oil. On your motor, I was going to tell you,
Probably go thinner.
you should be thinner. Yeah, you should be. You could even almost be 10W30, 10W. So
Also, this stuff works hella good.
that stuff works hella good,
Stupid good.
That-
I thought this was assembly lube.
dude. That
It
shit
works
right there
hella
is legit. So backstory, I picked the driven GP1 because I don't know why. I think I was looking to the leak, the oil analysis guy.
I don't know. I haven't watched that.
Lake Speed, I think it's called. Anyways, they did a bunch of analysis on oil. That shit right there is legit. So I went to Reno, brand new oil. Typically, it loses about 10 psi of oil pressure throughout the drive because of the temperature and it thins out. It's the same no matter what.
Damn.
So when I'm cruising at 2,500, 2,400 RPM, typically it starts out at about 63 psi and it drops down to like 55. It stayed at 57 the whole way from leaving all the way to 200 miles away. And then we went to Cars and Coffee the other day. It was still at 57 no matter what once it gets up to temperature. Yeah, that oil is legit.
Damn.
So that's Pennsylvania grade base lubricant. So I think there's not as many polymers in it. So anyways, I don't know a ton about the oil chemistry, but I do know there's a couple comments. Some road race guys are saying that base is really stable. It doesn't. Now, why were you saying that it was actually really good?
The reason why I was saying it's good because, like for my motor, when I was assembling everything, putting the oil on the rings and piston in the cylinder walls, it was, I believe it was 1030 or 1040, and it was just very runny. This stuff was like honey, basically. Yeah, it's just like if you were to have a packet of assembly lube, that's exactly what this feels like.
Yeah.
Like it had a nice coating around the cylinder, the skirts and the cylinder, so it would be good for startup.
So this here has an excellent film strength and friction modifiers. So, and it doesn't break down with temperature. And there's like a lot of ZDDP in it with zinc. Yeah. So no, I'm impressed with it. I'm using that from now on. It's $12-13 a quart. This is the Chevelle takes a 10 quart. It's a 10 quart system.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
the AccuSump?
AccuSump and the lines and everything. So it's not cheap, but your motor's not cheap either. So anyways, sidebar. All right. So yeah. So the motor's the bottom end is done.
Pump go right here?
Yeah, it's on the side. Yeah.
Okay, I figured. Okay.
So then tomorrow you got your camshaft, you got the roller rockers, or not roller rockers, but
Cam?
shaft rockers. The drive, degrade the cam in, and
Do we have to buy push rods? Like we still have to measure for that?
Yeah, we gotta measure for push rods. Yeah. So we'll have to use a push rod checker.
And then we gotta put the heads on too. Do we have gaskets for it?
Yes, the guy did a good job. He really supplied a lot of parts. He likes to buy stuff, so which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
So the starter's there. You got the heads over there, the valley tray. You might need my help figuring out the configuration of the valley pan and the gaskets. Kind of Mopar's a little bit different. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so yeah, it's coming together. So I just wanted to capture the calico bearing. This is a lifesaver here, because had we not had this, we'd have to live with a lot larger bearing clearances and run like 50 weight oil or something, which is not desirable.
It would take a while to get a new set.
A brand new bearing. Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. But in order to do a really good job, you got to make sure everything's perfect. That's why we write everything down. So, anyways, that's enough of that. Cool. All
Alright, so we got the cam in. We got the head gaskets in the mail, so I went ahead and put those on. Cleaned the deck. Everything looks to be good. And prepped the heads to install them. They're all clean now, so next thing I got to do is just set them on and torque the bolts down. Alright, so I got the head on there. And I got some new ARP bolts for it. So I just set them in there to make sure that they're all the right length. And I have the right kit. So the next thing I'm going to do is take them back out, put some ARP lubricant on them. Some assembly lube. And then I will torque them down to the spec that ARP provided. Alright, the heads are on, torqued down to 70 foot-pounds. Using the torque sequence and the moly lube. So now, I'm wondering what I should do next. Maybe I'll probably flip it over and work on the oil pump, which goes right there. The pickup tube, which we have right here. And the oil pan, which we have right here. So I'm gonna flip it over and we'll get to that. All right, so a little update on the 440. I had to modify this oil pickup. It was hitting the drain bolt and it was rubbing on this at first. So what I had to do was I had to heat this up, bend it downward, and then I had to shorten this up about 1.5 inches. And then this pickup was hitting on this windage tray, so I had to clearance it. So I think this tray moved. Line up the holes. About right there. So yeah, when it's bolted down, you can see it's not hitting. And there's plenty of clearance for the crank and the rods, so that won't be an issue. So yeah, so now we're waiting on the cam button, and for some reason this timing chain is really tighter than it really should be, so we're gonna call comp cams and see what's up with that. And then after that, I could put the front cover on and then bolt down the oil pan. So basically the oil pan's ready to be put on as soon as this front cover gets put on. So we're also waiting on an oil pump drive and a push rod for the fuel pump. So yeah. All right, so here's a little update on the 440. You see we made some progress. We also had a problem, and that was with the oil pan gasket. So they were I wouldn't say cheap because they're Felpro, but they were paper infused with rubber. So they didn't hold to the silicone that well for some reason, and under light pressure it squeezed out. So yeah, it is what it is. So we ended up going with a different design, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the next thing we went ahead and did was check for the push rod length, and these are, let's see, I forget. They're 8.375. So yeah. So these push rods will work perfectly. So we got them all in from shipping. So now I got to install them. I got to take the rockers back off. And the nice thing about this is since they're shaft rockers, they all are in the same spot and they all look good. So yeah, they all line up on the valve. So yeah, so the next thing I'm gonna take off is take this off, rockers off, and then I'm gonna set the lifters in, which they're soaking right now, and then reassemble it, torque everything down, and then lash the valves. All right, so I got the valve train on. I put some red line assembly lube on both tips of the push rods. Put some on the valve stem, and then I lashed the valves. So basically, I put it on the base circle of the lobe, and then I tighten this this nut or the screw down to the push rod to where it doesn't have any upward play, up or down, and then you do half turn. So, and then you lock it down. So I did that. Put ARP lubricant on the threads and the head of the bolts. Torqued them down to 30 foot-pounds. And so the next thing is to flip it over and install the oil pan. All right, so we ended up getting this style of windage tray for this motor. This seems to be a better design. It has the metal inserts so you don't over torque them. It also has rubber for it to seal on both sides, and it actually clears better. So before you had a gasket on the top and a gasket on the bottom, and there's actually it was taller, so I had to relief it for the pickup. So now I can actually just slide this in here, put silicone on both sides, obviously, but I could just slide it in there. I don't have to worry about having to clearance it, so it works a lot better. And this shouldn't crush or break or whatever. So I'm gonna install this now, put the silicone on, and torque down the oil pan. All right, so I got the bushing in, but from out the package, we couldn't just put it in. We had to do some modification, and I will show you what that is. So I'm going to show you guys what I had to do in order to install one of these bushings in the block. So this is supposed to have clearance on the inside, but the outside is supposed to be a press fit. And so if the outside is too large of a diameter, what will happen is it will actually compress this sleeve or bushing, and it will make it too tight on the oil pump shaft. So what we did was we measured the outside of this, the inside of the block, and we got the delta, and I believe it was I think it was, yeah, it was 3 thousandths too large. No, sorry. It
it was 3 thousandths over, so it would have been a 3 thousandths press fit. So what we did was we took down a thou and a half. So it was a thou and a half press fit, which gave enough room to give some clearance for the shaft when it was pressed in. So I'll show you how I took off 1.5 thou.
All right, so I chucked it up in the lathe, spun it. It looks pretty straight. And then I got some fine sandpaper, some WD-40. You see what I think one was 600 grit and the other was like 3 something. Yeah, so 600, and I got 330 or 360? Yeah, 360. So basically all I did was just get some WD-40 and sanded it down, and I used a mic. Where's the mic? Yeah. Just use this. And we took off 1.5 thou. So in order to install that, this gear came on the shaft that we actually put in, and this is a cast gear. So we ended up putting one of these gears on it, just so that because we got a I believe it's a billet cam core. So this was actually pressed on. It didn't have I forget what those things are called. One of these. Yeah, the name isn't coming to my head right now. But anyways, so what I did was I got that bushing that we just had, slid it on. Here, let me see. Let me do this better. All right, so with the old gear on it, the cast one, I installed the second bushing just like this, and then the one I was putting in on this side, obviously the right way, and then I slid it in to align it just like that. And then with the old gear on, I got a brass punch and slightly tapped it in just to get it started, because you don't want to get it crooked, because that bushing is soft. So what will happen is it'll scrape off some material, and then it won't be a press fit anymore. So it's solid. It's in there solid now. It's not gonna move. It's a perfect fit, and there is plenty of clearance for this oil pump shaft. So I did have to use the press to take that old gear off, and I had to press this new one on. Made sure it was at the same height, and I put some green Loctite on there. It's very thin, and it'll get, and you could kind of see right there, just to make sure that it's not going to move. And it's a pretty tight press fit, so I think even without the Loctite, it wouldn't even move. So yeah, so that's how I got that in. Don't worry, that didn't go in the motor. It's on the ground right there. So this shaft isn't going in for the final time just yet. We have to put the oil in it and prime the pump and all that stuff, because the oil passages are dry right now. So what I've been working on recently this morning was cleaning this intake. That's why the ground's all messy. Yeah, so just cleaning the intake, and basically preparing it for install. So right now I'm letting the plates dry that mount right here to keep that valley plate on. And then yeah, after that it's just valve covers, prime the oil pump, put the distributor in, and this thing is pretty much ready to go. Oh, then the accessories, but other than that, it's a functioning motor. So I'll do an update once the intake is on. Also, we got some new ARP bolts for it. We got a whole kit, so that's awesome. This thing's gonna look good. It's almost done. Just
got a couple more hours.
Got the plates painted, ARP bolts installed, silicone squeezed out everywhere. So now I gotta put silicone on this side and then put the intake on. Okay, so we're at the point where we can prime the oil pump. So I took another shaft that we had, pressed the gear. I don't know where it's at though. Oh, it's right here. Pressed the old gear off. And then what I did was I took an old oil pump drive shaft for a big block, and I basically, so it has the collar on it to keep it centered, and the male part of the shaft that we need. So what I did was I just made that side bigger so it could just fit on it, just like that. So now it sits in there, and we can spin it with the drill. Tighten it up and spin it. So now I didn't have to make anything, so that's cool. But now I'm gonna put some oil in it and the filter on, and then should be good to go. Then after that, spark plugs, valve covers, front accessory kit, and it's pretty much done. All right, we got the motor primed. I put the piston at top dead center. Might not be able to see it though. You barely see it. But yeah, it's at top dead center of the compression stroke. Both valves are closed. Balancer is on the mark, or tabs lined up. I set the distributor in. So the number 1, you can see it's marked. Lines up right there. So that's good. So now I'm going to put the valve cover gaskets on, put some silicone on it, and then put some ARP bolts on the valve covers, and yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and finish it.
Dang, how's it going, Andrew? Looks good.
Yeah, it's almost done.
It's really good. It's like one of those model engines you see like on GM from back in the day, like from when they're
On the assembly line?
yeah, on the assembly line. That's what it looks like almost.
Yeah.
It's funny because our motors don't look like this.
Stock?
No, just like no accessories basically, and chrome on this, aluminum this, aluminum that, and just all the aftermarket stuff.
Yeah.
It's good though. Looks cool.
Yeah, it's almost done.
What's left to do?
I have to put the AirPods on.
Okay.
And then I gotta figure out how this alternator and how the AC pump goes on.
I know there's a power steering. I wonder how that mounts as well. It can't all go on the same side, obviously. Or did it have?
You might have to take it back off anyways.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, because we got to get the motor in the car, obviously, right? And so this might have to come off. But it'd be nice to just kind of mock everything up to see what's missing and if anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Brand new. What was the most pain in the ass thing about this build? Or was there anything?
Oil pan.
Oil pan? Because of the way the dipstick is, or just the sheet metal?
No, just this style of windage tray.
Oh. That's not too bad.
No. Valve covers were a pain to get on, like the bolts.
Because the bolts are crooked from the factory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The threads are sideways. So basically on these bottom ones,
You have to get a really thin socket to get them started because they're going into that.
Oh, really? Must have been built on a Friday.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, other than that, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, fully complete. I think we're at a point where we can invoice. I think it's done, basically.
It's pretty much done. I just gotta finish machining these bolts. That's it.
Yeah, so you're machining the bolts because the splayed angle on this side versus that side, it conflicts with the actual the distance on the manifold. So they were kind of not agreeing with each other. So the bolts weren't really wanting to go in. You could use the factory bolts, but the factory bolts were a little bit looser. So with the ARPs, they're a little bit tighter. So that's
There's a boss right here.
yeah. So that we wouldn't clear that. So
Yeah, so as soon as it goes down up to it, it starts getting hard.
So you just machine it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, it's nice to have a lathe, right?
If not, you have angle grinder.
Yeah, we ghetto. Angle grinder and a drill.
Yeah.
Poor man's lathe.
Yep. Pretty much.
Well, looks really good, man. Things finally come together.
Yeah, almost there.
Man, I can't wait to hear it run. It's crazy. You wouldn't tell from the outside, but it has some badass parts in it.
Yeah, the cam's pretty decent size.
Yeah, it's gonna have some little sound to it.
Yeah, should sound really good.
So, this is our first Mopar. So, never built a Mopar before. And how does it differ from the big block Chevy, small block Chevy, or like a Ford? I mean, obviously, besides the obvious, physical, is there anything like that kind of caught you off guard, or is it easier?
That's a good question. I don't know.
So you know how Fords have the weird water pump setup where the bolts are long and it kind of sandwiched between the block, and they have their weird little characteristics.
No, this one's pretty easy. I'd say maybe the oil pump, the distributor to the oil pump setup, but I mean, I don't know, not really. Maybe the biggest thing would probably be the rear main seal.
Yeah, I'd say the second biggest thing would be the intake gasket.
Yeah,
From
you're
being-
talking about modifying it.
From being like a pain kind of, or at least different maybe. If you did them all the time, you'd probably maybe have like little tricks, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it's sprung like flat almost, where you got to bend it into shape.
Yeah.
Right, it doesn't come pre-coined to where it just drops in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Does it have a timing tab on it, or?
Yep.
Oh, nice. How about the firing order? That's one thing I don't. Is it similar to a Chevy? Is it a Ford, or just had its own deal?
This came off of it. It already had the tabs on it.
Oh, okay.
So I just
Bolted
put
it
it
up.
back to which
Put it back
number
up.
switch.
Cool.
But they're numbered the same as a Chevy, so.
Oh, 2, 4, 6, 1 through 5, 7.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. Well, looks pretty awesome. We have belts too. I think you bought belts,
Yeah.
which I don't know if we'll be able to. Like I said, some of the stuff's gonna have to come. I wouldn't go spend too much time in there, energy, putting the accessories on, because they're just have to come back off. But it may be for the purpose of mocking up, just to make sure things there. But beyond that, I don't believe there's any value in actually final assembly, like what you're never going to take it off again, because they're going to come off in order to get the motor. The engine bay is pretty long, but I don't think it's long enough to actually drop it in and have it not interfere with like the radiator or something.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah. It's pretty much done.
That's awesome. I should take it's like a thumbnail here. It's cool. I think those are extra.